Over the past 50 years or so, our world has been quietly but completely remade. The very foundation of our economy has shifted right under our feet, and it's changed everything: how we work, how we live, and who gets to get ahead. So today, we're going to trace that journey, from the steady, predictable hum of the factory floor to the wild, unpredictable code of the digital frontier. But here's the thing. There's a weird puzzle right at the heart of this story. Way back in 1987, a Nobel-winning economist named Robert Solow pointed out this strange paradox. He said, you can see computers everywhere, except in the productivity numbers. The huge boom that everyone was expecting just wasn't showing up. And that was really the first clue that the information age wasn't just about simple progress. It was about a deep, complicated, and often really disruptive transformation. So to really understand the world we have now, we first have to take a look at the world we lost. For a huge chunk of the 20th century, the economy ran on a totally different set of rules, an arrangement that we can call the Fordist deal. Now, Fordism was way more than just assembly lines. It was basically a social contract. The idea was pretty simple, right? Giant companies would mass-produce standardized stuff, and the workers who made all that stuff would earn enough money to actually buy it. This created this powerful, self-sustaining cycle of mass production and mass consumption. And for a long, long time, that deal worked incredibly well. Just look at this chart. Between 1948 and 1973, as companies got more productive, worker pay went up in almost perfect lockstep. I mean, they're practically mirror images. This direct link between productivity and pay is what created a stable, really robust middle class. It was the bedrock of the entire industrial age. But then, starting in the 1970s, and really picking up speed from there, a new force came along and started to tear that old world apart. The rise of the microchip, the internet. These things didn't just change our tools, they flipped the entire economic game board completely upside down. Okay, so here is the absolute core of the shift. The old economy was built on tangible assets, physical things you could touch, right? Like factories and machines. But the new economy, the one we're in now, is built on intangible assets, stuff you can't touch, like software, patents, data, and brand recognition. And the scale of this change is just staggering. I mean, get this. Back in the 1950s, over 90% of the value of America's biggest companies came from their physical stuff. Today, it's completely inverted. Now, 90% of their value is tied up in ideas, in code, and in data. So why does this even matter? Well, an economy based on ideas just plays by totally different rules. You can scale software infinitely at almost zero cost, which creates these winner-take-all markets. Investments in ideas are way riskier. You can't sell off lines of code if your startup fails. And things like network effects mean the big platforms just get bigger and bigger and bigger. This massive economic upheaval, as you can probably guess, led to a huge social consequence. It dramatically reshaped the job market. And in doing so, it created a whole new set of winners and losers. Think about the old job market for a second. It looked like a big, fat bell curve. Yeah, you had some low-skill jobs and some high-skill jobs, but the vast majority of opportunities, that giant bulge in the middle of the curve, were those middle-skill, middle-wage jobs in factories and offices. Well, the information age came along and basically hollowed out that bell curve. It took the middle and just scooped it out, transforming the whole thing into a U shape. The middle, quite literally, collapsed. So what does this U really mean? It means job growth started happening at the two extremes. At the very top, you've got high-skill abstract jobs, think designers, managers, where technology is like a super powerful assistant. And at the very bottom, you have manual service jobs like food prep that are still pretty hard to automate. But that middle, the routine, rule-based jobs, well, computers were a perfect substitute for that kind of work, and those jobs just vanished. And this was the results. Remember that chart from earlier where pay and productivity grew together hand in hand? Well, look what happened after 1979. That link just shattered. Productivity kept on soaring thanks to technology, but worker pay went almost completely flat. Economists have a name for this: the Great Decoupling. All the rewards from that growth started flowing to the owners of capital, of the ideas, not to the average worker. The impact on people's wallets has been absolutely staggering. The middle class, which at one point held nearly 2/3 of the nation's wealth, now holds just 43%. That one number really captures the devastating financial reality of this hollowing out process. Now, this wasn't some slow, gentle change. This was an economic shock to the system. So,
how did the millions of people whose jobs were suddenly gone try to adapt to this new world?
For those who lost their foothold in the middle class, there were basically three paths you could take. You could try to reskill, right? Go back to school, get some new credentials. You could relocate, pick up and move to one of these superstar cities where all the new knowledge jobs were popping up. Or for a lot of people, the only real option was to just exit the labor force entirely, often through disability or a forced early retirement. But for some people, and for some entire communities, the shock was just too great to bear. The loss of stable, dignified work wasn't just an economic blow, it led to a tragic public health crisis that researchers have now called deaths of despair. And the data on this is just heartbreakingly clear. In the exact same regions where manufacturing jobs collapsed, mortality rates from suicide, drug overdoses, and alcoholism started to climb. You see, the loss of a job was also the loss of an identity, of a community, and of hope, and it had devastating life-or-death consequences. Which brings us to today, because this transformation is not over, not by a long shot. We are still living inside of it, and we are still grappling with the deep, persistent challenges it has created. You know, we talk about the digital divide, but it's not just one single problem. It's really three different layers of exclusion. First, you have the access divide, just not having a physical connection. Second is the skills divide. You might have a connection, but you don't know how to use it effectively. And third is the usage divide, where some people use the internet to build businesses and learn skills, and others use it mainly for passive entertainment, which just reinforces old inequalities. This exclusion can even be baked right into our infrastructure. There's a modern phenomenon called digital redlining, where internet providers just decide not to upgrade their networks in poorer neighborhoods, trapping them with slow, unreliable service. This basically creates a digital caste system, locking whole communities out of opportunities for remote work, telehealth, and online learning. So this is where we find ourselves. The old industrial world is gone, but a stable, equitable digital world has yet to be fully built. We're left with a fundamental, massive challenge. As technology keeps accelerating, how do we design a society that ensures the incredible fruits of this new age are shared by the many and not just captured by the few?